This is Governor Larry Hogan, and I don't always have time to listen to podcasts, but I do enjoy listening to the Maryland Crabs podcast.
Live from a grungy kitchen table located in Annapolis, Maryland's scenic and historic capital, it's the Maryland Crabs podcast. With each episode, your hosts, Tim Hamilton, John Fernay, and the occasional guest will dive in and pick apart the stuff that really matters most to you. We're too lazy to actually solve any of these problems, but we can definitely stir the pot. From schools, politics, parking in the fire lane, to those horrible people who drive BMWs. And here with this week's episode, live from the kitchen table, Tim Hamilton and John Fernay.
Everybody has a bucket list, and tonight Susan Moynihan is joining us.
Hi.
That was about five tries to get that.
The big laugh on that one is that we tried to do this introduction like 4 times, and I screwed it up time after time after time. But Susan is a local Annapolitan who is a new author, I'm going to say.
Yes.
Is this your first book?
It is my first book.
This is exciting, and it is called 100 Things to Do in Annapolis and the Eastern Shore Before You Die.
Yeah.
It's fairly simple, so it's a bucket list.
And there's a bucket on the cover, so there you go.
There is. I thought that was I thought it was a bucket. No, okay.
Well, it could be a pail, not a bucket. I don't know.
So a pail was metal. And a bucket
that is metal, isn't it?
Yep.
Oh, so it's a pail list.
Yeah, it's a pail list. It's our own take because we do think differently in Annapolis.
Yeah.
There you go.
But it was your publicist who sent me this book, and I get a number of them throughout the year, and usually
Bragger.
they suck.
I asked him to send you that book too.
Okay, well, thank you.
On my hit list.
They said usually they suck, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll read through this. It was it's a fairly easy read. It's big print, not a lot of pictures, but it's got some big graphics. So that's my kind of book. And I'm going through. And I'm
long words.
Man, she's got this right.
That's
for
awesome.
For a lot of it. I mean, I can't speak to I don't do seafood, so I can't speak to some of the fishy stuff.
Gotcha.
But as a local, I mean, you see things that are so geared toward tourists. And it's like, okay, you need to do, this touristy thing and that touristy thing and so on and so forth. And you do have a mix in there because, they are. But you hit a lot of the local stuff and a lot of stuff that I didn't know, a lot on the Eastern Shore and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
Just a very, very good book. I know Tim had read it earlier today.
Yeah, I was in the Barnes & Noble and I was arguing. I wasn't. I was talking with my wife on the phone. And as she was on a long diatribe about something, I kind of drifted and looked right down and boom, it was right there.
Oh, good. The one in Annapolis?
This is Barnes &
Awesome.
Noble. So I
didn't know it was there yet. They were planning on it. But.
So I spent the next 10 minutes when she was talking just going through it. And she said, "Are you listening?" And I said, "Yes." And I wasn't. And I was listening. I was reading the book. It was fantastic.
Awesome.
It really was good.
Thank
and I agree with John. It was like, I actually had an interview the other day with Atlas Obscura, and they are a great group out of.
I love that website.
Oh my God, it's incredible. Mm-hmm. And they touch on a lot of the stuff that is, kind of woo. It's you really have to dig to get to it, and a lot of cool stuff. And they don't go to like the basic things that really are out in the open. So I like a mix of both. But there were some things in the book that I'm like, all right, I didn't think about that. I mean, you had McGarvey's in there. Of course, you want to go to McGarvey's. And
that was the whole balance. I wanted it to be, only 100. Like I could have easily done 200, but I wanted it to speak to Annapolis and the Eastern Shore, so locals would read it and go, oh yeah, okay. Like first you're going to go, is this in it? And I wanted to have some surprises, and I wanted it, if I had some place that was covered, I wanted it to hopefully have something, a little different way of thinking about it, or a little different thing that just might nudge you.
Just piece,
I guess.
Well, what was the impetus behind this? Why did you decide to write a book? Why now? And
I've been a travel writer for 15 years, and
okay, tell us a little bit about that.
I was a magazine editor. I worked primarily for wedding magazines, wellness magazines, and so I've traveled a lot. I traveled about once a month for about 15 years, and still do it. Left publishing 5 years ago, and when I moved back in January of 2018. I knew Annapolis because I grew up here, and I, come back summers and holidays and weekends.
So you were from here.
I was
way
from
back,
here,
right?
But I wanted to get to know it better. Exactly. I wanted to go to New York City. That's what you did.
Desire to survive and earn a living.
But then you got bored and came back.
You should do like Tim and I do. We don't earn anything, so it's.
So it was a great, how do you get to know a place that you know so well, but is different because you're coming back to it as an adult and it's different. And so I write. That's what I do.
You know what's interesting is I lived in New Mexico for about 5 years, which is a great place.
Yeah.
And there's a phenomenon there that everyone laughed about is that people who grow up in New Mexico don't generally leave. You see very few license plates from New Mexico out and about because they stay there.
Yeah.
And the joke was whenever they move somewhere, within a year or two, they move back. And when they move back, they become completely obnoxious about their New Mexicanness.
Yeah.
And about, there's like, this place is awesome. And they kind of are born again.
Yeah.
And I think that with maybe Annapolis too, is that people grow up here and they love it. I mean, what's not to? And then they leave. When you come back, you're like, I love this place. It makes you realize how much you love it. I mean, I'm not native. I've been here for 20 some years, but
it's native enough.
Ish.
You're come here.
Well, in Eastport, if you weren't born in Eastport,
well, that's true.
Yeah, they're a little snotty about that. Yeah, I'm calling you out.
I was told in no uncertain circumstances at one point that you needed to be here at least 15 years before you could call yourself, say, hey, I'm from Annapolis.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
And I was like, okay, so I crossed that bridge and and I'm okay.
But John said this to me once, and not much that John says sticks with me, but one thing he said was, he challenged me. He's like, be a poor tourist in your own town. And I thought about that because I'm thinking, Annapolis is really pretty small. And there were a lot of things that I hadn't ever done, and I still haven't. For example, coming down Route 2 across the Naval Academy right at the bridge, I've never stopped at that World War II memorial. I passed it literally 300 times.
And that was almost in the book. My boyfriend actually was the one who pointed that out, and I met him there one day when he was on his way to work, and it's beautiful. And it was the same thing. And I was driven by. I had never stopped. And he's like, just stop, get out of the car, look, and appreciate the beauty. And I did.
In fact, I was on Reddit the other day, or probably a couple weeks ago, and I found a picture of Goldie Hawn when she was like 17 because she grew up in Silver Spring.
Yeah.
And there's a picture of her sitting like posing at the World War II memorial as a 17-year-old. And she was beautiful.
I'm sure.
She looked like Kate Hudson. And I thought, it's so iconic that Goldie Hawn got her picture taken.
Yeah. And I think there's something about, I've traveled a lot and I always look for places with a sense of place and a sense of uniqueness. And Annapolis, it just has it. There's no place else in the world. And it's very distinct. And Annapolitans and Eastern Shoreans are really proud of where they live. And they you have a relationship with your town in a way that New Yorkers do. Like you have all of New York people, but you also have New York that you're in a relationship with. I feel like the Chesapeake is that way. And it's special and it's cool. And it's kind of undiscovered on the national travel media. I think people think we're not the South, we're not the North, and we're not.
No, you got the coolest flag.
Well, we do.
we do not, actually. They just ranked the U.S. flags, and we're in the top 4 or 5, but we were not number 1.
Who was number 1?
I think it was Alaska. They got the blue. I thought so too.
What's it got? Like a fish and a bear?
No. It's got the blue background with a single star, and then Texas was in there, I think, and New Mexico. I think we got beat out by New Mexico.
Boring.
Texas is a pretty good one.
New Mexico's, and that's a good one. But
New Mexico that's the one with the
Zuni sun.
The colors.
But
ours is
no one
good.
loves their flag more than Marylanders do.
It's true. And no one has their flag in as many crab shapes as we do, or dog shapes.
That's true.
Yeah.
But so I think you're right. I mean, there's if you look at our sisters along the eastern seaboard, it's Charleston, South Carolina, and Newport.
Yeah.
And so you have the northern, you have the southern, and then we are the middle child. Yes. Yeah. Well, I don't know. So maybe Savannah. Yeah. I love Savannah.
And the other thing that I love about Annapolis is, yes, it's touristy. We all know. I didn't come down here last weekend because of the boat show. You want to avoid it. But it's also a real, modern, thriving, living town. It's not just tourists. And despite how old it is, it's neighborhoody. And I think that's rare. A lot of towns turn into kind of open air museums, and this could, but it hasn't. And I think that's because of the people here.
I think that's probably a part of the problem that Annapolis has is trying to figure out how to balance that whole tourist neighborhoody thing. And
but you and I, you know how I feel about it. I've always said that Annapolis is nostalgic for a time that never existed. That they've built this sort of downtown. That this is what Annapolis has been for years, and it hasn't.
Yeah.
It's not like that. And I'm constantly on the Eastport.
Every home had a bucket, like on the cover of this, and they were throwing out their shit into the street. And letting
pretty much, yeah.
But if you're on the Eastport Forum, you have nothing but people in their 60s and 50s, 60s, and 70s just rambling on about how Annapolis wasn't the same as it was when they were kids, when everyone held hands and danced.
To buy houses, I guess, in Eastport.
I guess. But I got an argument with a woman recently. I said, do you think it was great for African American people?
Yeah,
who had to sit?
absolutely.
And she said, in my Annapolis, there was no segregation. I'm like, your Annapolis must have been nice.
I was just speaking with someone. I did the First Sunday Arts Festival the other day, and I was speaking with someone, and she went to high school at Annapolis High School. She's like, oh, back when it was segregated. And
right.
My mom remembers that. They were stationed here in the 60s. My dad taught history at the Naval Academy, and she remembers that.
Well, I was born in 1970, and this is when Maryland was Southern, back in the 60s and 70s, and it kind of died off in the 70s where we stopped. And I remember growing up, and it was after integration and stuff, but they still had the structure because I was born like 5-6 years after.
Yeah.
And you'd see like water fountains set up and all these leftovers.
Yeah.
I asked my mom about that. I'm like, because we were near Glen Echo, where the famous where the segregation. There's a big story where a whole team came down from New York, and one of the kids was black, and he couldn't get in, so none of them would go in. And I asked my mom about that. I said, what was it like, segregation growing up? She goes, you never thought about it. She goes, you wouldn't look around and think this is wrong. She goes, that was just accepted. That's how it was.
It's part of the book. I have 2 theaters that are in it, the Avalon in Easton and then the Prince in Chestertown. And both of those have these charming balconies. And when I was touring them, they're like, yeah, that was from segregation years. And they're restored. And of course, it's not that now. But it never occurred to me, it's not a charming. And at the Avalon, she's like, yeah, when we first were taking it over, the ceiling's lower, the viewpoint's not as good, the seats aren't as comfortable, and that's legacy of segregation.
To Kill a Mockingbird, yeah, they're all up in the
sort of
gallery.
interesting to talk about the segregation. I know I did a podcast for my legacy business series with Hardesty Funeral Homes, and they were the first integrated funeral home in the state.
Wow.
And they still had 2 separate doors, and they're still there down in Galesville, one for the blacks and one for the whites.
Yeah.
And it was just amazing that they were like, no, we will take care of anybody that comes in. But at the time, it was,
as
it had to be segregated. And this is.
And having our first gay pride parade this year was so fantastic. And the energy on the street was amazing. It was packed. It was such a great turnout. And
it was hotter than hell.
It was a little hot.
Yeah.
I sat in the shade and had a beer. I was good.
In the Avalon, talking about that is one of the most underrated gems in the state. The acts they get at the Avalon, which is really in the sticks. I mean, Easton is a charming town, but it's out there, but it is. They get some great acts out there.
Do.
Like Robert Cray was out there, and I'm a big Robert Cray fan.
We saw
it's a great venue.
Yeah, which was a fantastic show. And to see it in that little space.
Yeah, I love NRBQ. There's an offside.
It's very 80s.
I've been fans from forever.
Yep.
So how did you weed through all of them? I mean, you came down to 100. I mean, what didn't make the book that you thought should? Like that goes in 100 more things to do in Annapolis before you die.
The crab hash at Iron Rooster.
I never had that.
Oh, it's so good.
What is it?
It's hash, and it's got crab meat and potatoes, and it is just delicious.
Oh, that sounds stupid.
So yeah, so that's one of the things. I'll go. It gets so crowded there that I'll go on a Tuesday at 11 because that's the only time you can get in without a line.
Right.
So I wanted it. My parameters were Annapolis, and if it was something like Homestead Gardens, which isn't technically Annapolis, but it's enough of Annapolis, and my mom goes there all the time. So that fit, but I didn't get down to Galesville because that was getting into a whole other section.
Right. Draw the line somewhere.
It should say Maryland's Eastern Shore, but that didn't fit on the cover. It's only Maryland's Eastern Shore. I don't get into Virginia or Maryland's Western Shore. I wanted things that felt unique, that were either created here or represented something here, or wouldn't be the same if they were done anywhere else.
We talked about that when we talked about restaurants. And I think John and I
could have had 100 restaurants. That was hard.
And we had not a debate, but we had kind of a challenge to people saying that we were talking about the level of cuisine in Annapolis and where we stood. And our question was, what restaurant would you drive from Baltimore or DC to Annapolis? And the 2 criterion that we had was it can't be because of the view. So you can't, and it's gotta be,
and it can't be here for something else.
Oh, and it can't be
eat and leave,
and it can't be a steakhouse. Because for that reason, although Luna's is my favorite restaurant,
it's great.
I love Luna's, but you can have a steakhouse anywhere. So I reluctantly disqualified them from that because you wouldn't drive from DC or Baltimore to Luna's because you have some other fantastic steakhouses there.
But it's not wood.
And I love Luna's. I gotta say that they're my favorite.
Sailor Oyster Bar, I think, is a total gem. Their menu is unlike any menu I've ever seen. They're so nice.
They don't have a kitchen.
It's exactly, but they have great food. Go figure.
What do they do? They just run this stuff down, or
they have a torch.
They got warmers.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, but that's the whole thing. They don't have a kitchen, but they have great food.
Huh.
So that's definitely one. I mean, traveling the world, I would never eat a crab cake outside of Maryland. And I have been to so many fancy restaurants where they're like, oh no, trust me, ours is good. And they're just not. I mean, I would drive to Edgewater.
I'm a believer. I mean, you don't go down to, no offense to Brian Bolter, but you don't go down to Red Wine Bar and get New Orleans beignets.
Exactly.
No, they're not.
That says Grump's has a pretty mean beignet, I gotta say.
They're good. They're good, but they're not.
Yeah.
They're not a New Orleans beignet.
Yeah.
Now,
you're not going to get a Maryland crab cake. You're not going to get a Philly cheesesteak someplace.
Now, Phillips is coming in, evidently.
I saw that.
Now, and John and I talked about
Didn't
this.
it used to be Phillips way back in the day? I feel like I went to homecoming there.
It was. Well, I don't know if it was that long ago, but it was 80s? Around where the other side of 90s? Eagle Alley.
Where we call it the fake Annapolis Yacht Club was when the yacht club burned down.
Right.
And my problem with Phillips is they have the Indonesian crab meat there. Yeah. Now, John said they're going to be bringing crabs in off the boat.
Which is a cool concept, but how many crabs will they actually bring off the boat? I don't know. We'll see.
Well, I
always thought that the old Phillips building would be good for Cantlers to be able to just have a second location here, because Cantlers is a little bit difficult for tourists to get to.
Absolutely.
And you could do the Pike Market throw the fish type thing where you could bring them over in a speedboat, unload them onto the little waterman's boat, and get the old skinny guy in the dungarees come out and hand a bushel and type of thing. So I think that's similar to what Phillips may be looking to do.
Well,
and hopefully they're going to work with Wild Country or some local.
Absolutely, and they know their crabs, so
it's awful. We don't have, for being in the heart of crab country, we don't have many crab houses in and around Annapolis. We have Cantlers, which, I love Cantlers, but it is, the tourists found it years ago.
Absolutely.
And that's a big thing.
Mike's is the local spot.
Mike's is good, but that's pretty far out of town.
South.
See, to me, you can't be a crab house unless you're touching the water. It's just one of my little
see that
random.
I agree with you there, Susan. I think that if you're going to be a crab place, you need to be there on the water for some reason.
Yeah. But we have a
dirty. You need to be able to go by boat. Not that I have a boat, but if I did,
I hear Edgewater Restaurant has the best crab cakes around.
They're good.
Yeah. And it's
Lunas again.
Old
Lunas
school, untouched, and that's what I love about Cantlers. I mean, Cantlers gets a rap just because so many tourists have discovered it, but go off season and the vibe is great, and it's local and it's historic, and there's no place quite like
this to me is the best time of year. I don't go during the summer. I love getting crabs. Yeah, exactly. October crabs to me, it's a fall thing for me. Yeah. I love that.
Well, this time of the year, and we're recording this in early October, is great because the boat shows are winding down.
Yeah.
And we get the city back for a while until the legislature comes back in to a degree. And I know that I've talked to one restaurateur, and I'm not going to name him, but he said, in February, if you come and eat at my restaurant and sit in the window, I'll probably pay for your dinner. It's that tough.
Oh,
it can be that tough. And he says, if you smile, I might buy you a dessert.
Awesome. Good to know. Sit in windows and smile.
But it was all about talking about what, the events that the Downtown Annapolis Partnership puts on, the Midnight Madnesses and the Dining Under the Stars, it's the summer thing and everything
which is
else.
In the list.
Which is in your book.
Yeah.
But it helps. I mean, it's just every
Absolutely.
little bit. And it's,
And I'm concerned what's going to happen when they redo that parking garage on Main Street. That's going to be, because parking is the whole issue,
They should have done something when they had the chance a couple of years ago where the school was, but that's former Mayor Cohen couldn't get out of a wet paper bag that during that time. But this book is laid out really well. I mean, you've got food and drink, which is probably your biggest thing. You've got music and entertainment, and there's no shortage of that here in the area as
Absolutely.
well.
Matter of fact, I wish people would utilize that more. Like if you look at the Summer Garden Theater and the Colonial Players, I think I've gone to a few things there and they're spectacular. I don't know.
Well, we've got a really good,
Annapolis has always had a great music scene. I mean, I grew up with HFS and independent radio, and it helped.
Oh, the old HFS.
Yeah, and it helped shape me. And the fact that R&R is still independent, and the playlist has changed a bit, but the live music is supported here, and the bands that come through Ramshead, just because of the relationships that they've had with them over the years.
It's one of the best small venues on the East Coast.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
I wish they get more comedy. That's my only complaint. They get some good people, but...
Yeah, no.
I don't necessarily like the sitting all the time. If you see a rock band, sometimes you want to stand and dance. So
well, they've lightened up on that. I mean,
which is good.
Which is they have some shows actually that are dancing shows.
Yeah.
Which is kind
of cool. We saw Tito Puente Jr. Last month, and the place just exploded. People were dancing everywhere.
Who was it?
Tito Puente Jr.
Oh, well, you could not dance.
It was awesome.
not dancing.
It was incredible. The whole place just exploded. I
love that they've now backed
off neighbors with my good friend in Miami.
Oh, down in Florida.
Yeah. Tito Puente Jr. lives down the street.
Oh, he was fantastic.
Small world.
But they, and I love that they backed off on the photography thing. And I remember because
they used to yell at you.
I'm trying to remember who it was, but it was it's a movie star that's singing with
Chris Christopherson. Oh, with his daughter.
No, he's a movie star singing. I can't remember. It was Kevin
Bacon?
No, it wasn't Bacon.
Paul.
Another. I can't remember who it was. But anyhow, they used to have a woman running around in the Rams head saying, "No, put your camera down. No, don't take the pictures. Don't take the pictures." And he was all of a sudden he stood up. He said, "Wait a minute. Whoa, no. I'm starting this new band." It was Kenny Loggins, actually.
Oh, okay.
He says, "No, I'm working with this." This new band, man. We need Instagram us,
awesome.
Facebook us. And the whole place erupted with the flashes and the poor woman, I felt bad for her because she looked so defeated.
Yeah, well,
it was like,
when the artist speaks.
300 people there. But, the book is great. I mean, you talk about shopping and you talk about culture, you talk about sports, food, entertainment. And I think it's, and you really hit it all.
Thanks.
How'd you start? Did you just have you just had a blank piece of paper or a big chalkboard and just started?
The publisher has other books like this. They have New York is one, Denver is one. So I had heard of the publisher through a friend of mine and reached out to them and said, you need a book on Annapolis. And actually he had said, someone had reached out to me, but she lives in Napa or something. I'm like, well, you can't have someone from Napa writing a book about Annapolis because we know and we're going to know if it's not spot on.
We'll write a book about Napa then. Fine. We'll see how they like it.
Yes.
Well, as I read through, I got two things.
Okay.
I know what one of them's going to be. Bitch at here. Yeah, well, we'll get into that. But you said be a MIDI, and nobody calls them middies.
My dad did.
He didn't go to the academy, did he?
Nobody taught at the academy.
He taught at the academy.
And my brother went to the academy. So to me, it's an affectionate.
Ask your brother if they're referred to as middies.
Oh, I'm sure not. But it's and it's a play off of Play Misty for me. So it was a little Johnny Mathis reference.
I didn't pick up on that. And then
I was thinking about the movie. with the stalker and the Clint Eastwood.
Oh yeah, and that too, because you could stalk a MIDI. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, right.
And then your inclusion of Davis's in here. Not so much that Davis is included, because I was talking.
I didn't see that. Is this going to set me off?
And we are exactly on the same page. But this is not a dive bar.
Ebtide.
So I know, Ebtide's great. So I've had this discussion. To me, dive bar is a huge compliment. And to me, a dive bar is a place that you can go in smelly and dirty right off a boat or right after, working in the yard or whatever. Or you can pop in when you've been at some stuffy event and you're all dressed up, but you just want to slump and sit and relax. So it's a compliment for sure. And in a town where there's so many higher end dining and, $10 glasses of wine, the fact that you have something that's so great and so local that you can just dive right into it. I stand by it.
So food doesn't play into.
Oh, dive bars can have food, and their food's great. I had the barbecue sandwich the other night.
The style of food. What was it that you said, Tim? A dive bar can't have.
I'm looking for it now. You can't have a salad special. That's where. So what happened?
Or you don't need a steak knife. If you eat everything with your fingers, you're good. So
I go into Reddit a lot. That's one of my bad habits. One of my many bad habits. And there's a Reddit subreddit for Annapolis, and someone said, "Yeah, well, yeah." So some people get on there and someone said something about dive bars and they were saying that, and this is a pet peeve of mine. And they said something about Davis's being a dive bar. And I said, it's not a dive bar. The only dive bar in town that's left, and there was two of them at one point. One was where the CNC Liquors was.
Yeah.
Because there's a bar that fit precisely 4 people with a nudie calendar on the wall. And then Ebtide. And I got just... Everyone was kind of flying at me. They said, well, it is a dive bar. I'm like, it's not. They have they have a homemade beef stroganoff and they have a wine list. They have, it's red and white. So the guy actually said, look, old timer, I'm 49. And I'm like,
look at here, old timer.
Yeah. And they did. They said, well, the definition has changed. I'm like, well, and that's where I got on my whole millennial thing.
But I think that that's true. And dive bar used to be, I think, a place that you wouldn't go into after dark unless you knew someone, or certainly a place that a woman would not go into on her own. And
the Blue Oyster,
I think it's casual and relaxed, and it's unfussy, and it's a good dive bar. You could be sitting next to a millionaire, you could be sitting next to a homeless person, and you don't care, and everyone's getting along, watching the game or eating the crab top pretzels.
I was talking to Kevin Colback from Davis's the other day, and I did mention.
I listened.
I did mention that he was a dive bar. He said, "Hey, I'll take it."
Yeah.
And again, he thought the dirty the dirty floor and the concrete floor and stuff.
And the bathrooms are tiny. Yeah. That's another, to me, a dive bar, just,
Now, my only problem, I love Davis's. I don't want them to think I don't love them.
No, absolutely.
The only thing I don't like is that and this is my problem with Eastport, because I always pick on Ward 1 for being snotty and just, they don't want anything to change. They don't like anybody except for Ward 1. I will pick on Eastport now because Eastport is very cliquey. And I love Davis's. I got to keep saying that. But when you go to Davis's, you kind of sit down, everyone kind of stops and stares like, that's Kevin's seat.
Oh, you're like,
is Kevin here? Well,
I haven't found that, but that was a really, I think maybe an advantage on coming back. I didn't have preconceived notions. I don't, I went to high school here, but I don't, except for my boyfriend who I went to high school with and a couple of other people that I'm in touch with. It's all a sea of new faces. So I didn't have that where every place is new to me, but also incredibly familiar.
The first time I walked into Davis's, I felt like those guys from Animal House walking into the black bar where Otis Day and the Knights would play.
Yeah.
And they stopped playing?
It was like, the band stopped, they all looked around. And
we are going to die.
But it's funny, you talk about the next to a millionaire and a homeless guy did shots and beers with Steve Forbes at the Ebb Tide.
There you go.
I mean,
Yeah.
And I was the only person in there that knew who the hell he was.
Way off the beaten path for Steve Forbes. I mean, just to be the Ebb Tide.
I'm really upset they're closing.
It was.
To me, that's more, it's not closing.
Well, I know, but it's not going to be the same.
Yeah. I think that
now it's like one of those Eastport people who are now complaining about what's, was better.
But Jen knows her neighborhood and loves her neighborhood and loves that spot. So
and she's talking about Jen from Smokehouse. Because they didn't buy it, but they're going to take over the lease.
I think if anybody will do it right, I think she absolutely will.
They're changing the name, right? Dark Horse?
I don't. It could be.
That's what I heard.
When I talked to her, it was still like.
I love Ebb Tide.
Yeah, I hadn't heard they were changing the name. I mean, she said that it was going to put maybe another window in, brighten it up a little bit.
Yeah, which I could see.
I think the menu's going to pretty much maybe improved a little bit.
Those burgers
I never go there to eat.
Burgers. Oh, those burgers are the best.
I just go to sit at the bar late at night and gab.
Oh, the burgers are the best in town. Hands down.
Well, the one thing I love about the Ebb Tide is that you can always tell it's 12:15 because there's a big rush.
Yeah.
People from the downtown bars.
Absolutely.
It must be 12:15.
It is on my way home. I've been part of that rush before when I'm being dropped off. Yep.
Everyone meets at the Ebb Tide.
Yeah.
I live in Arundel on the Bay. So, I mean, of course, I got to go on.
I love that neighborhood. That's a pretty neighborhood.
Yeah, it's awesome.
How did you get into all of these? I mean, one thing that, and I've never heard of it, and I want to try it, is the Barbara's
on the Bay.
Barbara's on the Bay. In this little town that I never knew existed.
Betterton. What a great name for a town.
Where's that? Betterton is?
No.
I don't know, but apparently it's near water.
Yeah, it's right where the Sassafras comes into the bay.
So north.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's on that where there are lots of don't build the bridge signs.
Yeah.
And so I had, I did a lot of sleuthing. I love a road trip. So I did a lot of driving around. My boyfriend and I love to do that. And we went to Dixon's furniture auction, which he told me about, and finally went, and it was amazing. And then we're like, let's go explore some more. And that had been on my list to check out. And the really fun thing about this book as well is that I wasn't beholden to anybody. Nobody knew I was coming. Nobody was offering comps to be in it. It was just, if I like it and it fits and it works, it's in. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And her char-grilled oysters were awesome. And I liked her story, and I liked the view, and I liked the fact that it was back in the day, one of these towns that was serviced by ferry. And it's actually one of the first places where women voted. There's a little town that you pass on the way to a smaller town.
That's where it started, huh?
Yeah. I know. And of the women that voted, I think, I don't have this on memorized, but like 3 of them were African American, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. It just shows, that's so what this state and area is about.
It's funny. I think we look at, I get on the people on the Eastport forum about how they're always complaining about how things today are much worse than they were when they were growing up and everything was awesome. But then I'm on the Montgomery County forum on Facebook, and it's the same thing. People just lamenting how much better. And I kind of share in that because I go back and it doesn't resemble anything where I grew up with.
If I could go back in time, I would get Machoyan chicken back in the market house. That's my biggest thing that I miss.
But if you go to the Eastern Shore, those people's lives were completely disrupted in the 50s when the Bay Bridge was built.
Oh, completely.
And even now, there's so many gems. The Eastern Shore has been very slow to change. Yeah. Even now, people are creeping over to East, or to not as far. Maybe as far as Easton, but they're going, to Queenstown, and none of that stuff was there when we were growing up.
No, you drove to Ocean City, stopped for gas in Easton, and then kept
and when you went over the Narrows, that was all marsh. And now it's all, you feel like you're old. Those were all fields.
Yeah.
But I feel bad for those people to an extent because they had the lives that they pretty much wanted. Although, it's a very poor area.
Exactly.
But now you find so many really cool gems over there. Like for a while there, John and I knew about this place over in Graysonville that was La Piazza, which I thought was some of the best pizza in Maryland.
Is that the wine bar?
No. It was a hole-in-the-wall pizza place. And unfortunately, the old guy who owned it. He died a couple of years ago, so it's not the same. But when you find a gem like that, you're like, how did people not know about this?
Yeah.
That's
that
incredible.
wine bar over there in Stevensville is changing names, too.
Okay.
That was, I'm trying to remember the name of it, but that's right there in the middle of the little town.
Yeah, exactly.
Rustico?
Could be.
I think is what it was. Somebody else has bought it, and they're excited about it. Mm-hmm. So I thought it was pretty good the way it was.
Yeah.
So why'd you stray over to the Eastern Shore too?
Because I didn't want 100 in Annapolis. I love a road trip. To me, that's where we all go when we're looking for something else. I wanted that part of the world to be covered as well because there are just great gems. And to me, it all speaks to the same of the Bay, of the history, culture. I think there's much more of a connection between Annapolis and Easton or Berlin or Chestertown than there is between Annapolis and DC.
With the traffic on the Bay Bridge lately.
Well, that's true. But emotional. There's an emotional tie. All of our founding fathers, a lot of them had plantations out on the Eastern Shore and would come in. And that's why our legislative session is still so short because it was just their break from farming.
Well, I'll tell you what, since we're all Annapolitans here and the people listening pretty much know these things, why don't we talk? We'll take a short break and when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the Eastern Shore and you tell us about the gems that are over there.
Okay.
When a ring from the United States Naval Academy comes into Zachary's for a center stone, it always makes us wonder, where's this one going? Where's this one been? A nuclear sub in the North Atlantic? A carrier deck in the South Pacific? The moon? 52 astronauts are Academy graduates, from Iwo Jima to Okinawa, Corregidor to the Coral Sea, Midway to the Persian Gulf, Congress to the White House. These rings go where America goes. 73 that went to war were awarded the Medal of Honor. But wherever they go, wherever they may serve, our admiration goes with them.
Zachary's. Online at zacharysjewelers.com. More than a jewelry store, a jeweler.
Here's to the teacher who spends her weekend helping children who need a little extra attention. To the soldier who missed the birth of his baby while serving overseas. To the EMT working full-time and taking night classes. To the police officers and firefighters working long hours away from their families to keep our families safe. Here's to you, our hometown heroes. I'm Alan Hyatt, Chairman and President of Severn Bank, and we know there are many heroes among us. Men and women who serve without expecting anything in return. Which is why we're honored to offer our Hometown Heroes program to educators, law enforcement officers, firefighters, first responders, healthcare workers, and military personnel. Whether you're opening a checking account or buying a new home, we're here to give back to you. Learn more about our Hometown Heroes program at severnbank.com. Severn Bank, here with you.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
All right, we're back here with Susan Moynihan, who is the author of 100 Things to Do in Annapolis and the Eastern Shore Before You Die.
Yes.
I am 57, so I've got a couple more years. I'm working my way through your list of things.
Awesome.
We were just during the break, I was just talking about how my brother's been everywhere in the world and how he says that there's not anything that has been untouched by tourism or commercialism. And Susan's point was, but, there's things there to be discovered, that it's not, people want to keep things, they want to visit it and they want to preserve it. So it's the way that they want it to be, but everyone else wants to see it. And I think when I was saying before that the Eastern Shore was kind of isolated from us before the Bay Bridge, but now there are a lot of cool things and it brought a lot of things to them that they needed.
Well, and it's how, it's how towns get restored and people get to go back and live there and be in these, they don't have to leave a small town and go to a big city to make a living if technology and things are impacting, they can live and work where they are.
I think Easton was like that. I mean, Easton was pretty run down, and over the last 20 years, Easton has really built up, but not in a bad way.
Yeah.
I mean, someone who grew up there.
Too. Berlin is a cool town.
That was voted like the coolest town in America several years ago.
It
was
is.
It really?
There's
and Forbes or Condé Nast or somebody
one of
voted
those, yeah. And it's I think relatively inexpensive because people would build up at the beach. Mm-hmm. Great brewery there, great food scene there, and the young families that are moving in are reclaiming it, and they're not tearing it down, and they're not building condos.
Because those houses are spectacular.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
Have you ever been to Snow Hill? Which is that's a great little town.
Gorgeous.
That is right near Assateague. It's about or on the other side near Pocomoke State Park.
It's near the otters at the Discovery Center, which is in the book.
It is. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
that is a stunning little town.
Yeah, it is. There's a great paddle there that you can do on that river.
Are you about 50-50 on the Eastern Shore in Annapolis?
It's a little more Annapolis. I was trying to have it be 50-50. It's probably 60-40.
Did you find that the Eastern Shore was a different world?
I think there's a common thread that goes through it. I think there's a love of land and the region and the water. I think that there's a common history. Our roots go back so deep. I think there's a tolerance there that you don't find in other sort of equally isolated places farther south. I mean, it's always been this cross ground between North and South. And so it has this, people there are super educated and know what they're talking about. And even on Smith Island, that was a highlight to get to go out there. And just in the way the timing of the book was, we went in December, and nobody goes to Smith Island in December. So there wasn't a lot open. But the woman at the Smith Island quilt shop came and met me. She had just known through a friend that we were coming out, and I thought that she would say hi, come to my quilt shop, and that wasn't the case at all. She's like, well, let me show you around, and put us in her car, and it didn't have a seatbelt, but who cares because you're on Smith Island, and was so welcoming and so kind. And the Smith Island Bakery there's one that just reopened on Island, and they want people to come and see this beauty and support it. They don't want too many to come. And they want, if you come, be respectful. It's a dry island, don't go and be drinking your 6-pack of beer on the front porch. But if you bring it and you want to drink it in your hotel room, then that's fine.
Maryland, for being so geographically small as it is so varied, more so than I think a lot of other states. I think, for Western Maryland is essentially Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it's a whole other world.
So everything west of Route 15, I think that's Western Maryland. And when you get to Garrett County, that's completely, I think that is Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
But Central Maryland is so transient now. When I grew up, it wasn't, but now it is, and that's where all the money is. And there's nothing but farms out in Howard County, which is now the richest county in maybe the country, but certainly in Maryland.
That's crazy.
But Southern Maryland, like Charles County and parts of the Eastern Shore, it's like being in the South. Like you go to Charles County,
it is
which
South.
I know is not in your book, but you go there. Their barbecue is fantastic. You get grits, you get sweet tea. And I'm like, is this really 40 minutes from Annapolis? And it's the real deal too.
Yeah.
It's not like this put on like they're wannabes. Yeah. That's still the touch of the South. But
we are below the Mason-Dixon line. I always swore after I left New York City, I will never live above the Mason-Dixon line again.
We're the Jan Brady of, we're not North, we're not South. We have, what did Kennedy say? We have Southern efficiency and Northern charm. It was just
Southern charm and Northern efficiency.
No, it was.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it was not a compliment.
Gotcha. Oh,
and that was DC. Yeah. But when I was growing up, Maryland was Southern, and I interviewed John Shields, who does the Chesapeake Cookbook. You've seen all that, and he was talking about these traditional Maryland cuisines that are unfortunately kind of dying, and Maryland fried chicken, and that's kind of dying.
Yeah, stuffed ham.
Yeah, we talked extensively about that. I've never heard of that, but that's a Southern Maryland thing. But you go to the Eastern Shore, and these things are not just alive because they don't say this is our culture. It's just what they do. It's
People still eat muskrat. It's a traditional food, and it is muskrat.
Have you tried it?
No, I have not. I don't think I need to. But they have snapping turtle soup at Hunter's Tavern, which is
I've had that.
Great. Yeah.
It tastes like it tastes like what you think it would.
Like turtle soup.
Yeah. So this is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, is it really?
Yeah.
Now I've said I've had it. That's all I really need.
Yeah.
Now, what are your favorite things on the Eastern Shore?
Dixon's Furniture Auction is fantastic. It happens every Wednesday at 9 a.m. It's been going on for 50 years. And it's where all of the people who have vintage stores around the tri-state come, and it's a live auction. You follow this auctioneer around, and he's being pushed around on this cart, and you have a paddle, and you try and outbid the Baltimore hipsters for the mid-century modern stuff. That's what I did. But when we were there, another guy found these chairs, and he thought they were probably from the 1600s. And people know what they're looking for, and it's a hodgepodge. You never know what you're going to get. It's a lot of estate sale stuff, but I loved that it exists. I love that it's so exactly how it's been.
He says Wednesdays?
Yeah, it's on Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Don't tell anyone. Shh.
Okay.
We'll edit this out.
Edit that out?
Yeah.
You've got your different things. Give me your favorite food place of all your list.
I love Sailor Oyster Bar.
Okay.
Oyster Bar. I think it's great.
Okay, that's fine. What's your favorite music and entertainment place?
Ram's Head.
Okay.
I'm there a lot.
Okay. Sports and recreation?
I think Schooner Woodwind is a beautiful, beautiful part of this town. And I bring my friends when they come to visit, and seeing their face when they get out on the bay for the first time. And I get to point out, like, Bay Ridge, I'm the neighborhood back behind there. It's magic, and they do it right.
And not many people know this. So I guess we talk about it a lot, but it was in The Wedding Crashers. That was a Schooner Woodwind.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
so I'm telling you something you didn't know?
You are.
That's right. The scene when they're out there with Christopher Walken, and he's like, "Oh, my boy, come take the helm." And she was there underneath there steering.
She was steering.
Awesome.
Because he says, "I act. I don't drive boats." He said.
Yep. For culture and history, what's your best tour? Culture history thing.
I was really surprisingly taken with London Town. I had never been. That was a place that's really sort of on your list, but you never get to it. And
it's over right outside Edgewater.
Sounds like a fifth grade field trip.
Exactly. But the cool thing about it is the main tavern there. The director described it as, Annapolis, the historic homes here were where the millionaires would have lived, but this is where we would have lived. And the old tavern there was from the 1850s through, I think, the 1960s was a poor folks' home. So it was never torn down.
An almshouse?
Yeah. And it was never altered. And so most of these old buildings have been torn down, or they've been turned into private mansions. And the fact that you can go in and see it, and it's got its great spot on the shore. I just find it really evocative.
Have you ever been to the Edgewater restaurant that's right next to it?
Yeah.
They have great crab cake. It's an old person restaurant. So you go
it's
in and
on my list of best crab cakes.
And their crab cakes are phenomenal.
Yeah.
And they do this thing where they take a potato and they peel it and they boil it. And then they deep fry that sucker.
Oh, that sounds good.
I'm looking at the menu. I'm like, this is bizarre. And they're like, do you want it? I'm like, yeah, I want it.
I'll take two.
I know. It was, my heart burst later in the day, but it was so good.
Yeah.
That's fine. I know you mentioned a bunch of the tours that are in here too. And I know you've picked up a couple of watermark tours and the walking tours and the ghost tours and stuff like that. One I think that you missed, unless I missed it, is their architect's tour.
Which is Watermark does, which is super cool. I didn't get into specifics because I wanted, if somebody was coming, they only offer it twice a year.
Okay.
But the James Bryce House, what is really cool going on right there now, and it's a 3-year project so people can do it. They're restoring that house. It's being led by a restorer from Williamsburg, and you can go in and tour with a hard hat and see it under redevelopment, which is
peeling
pretty
back the
rare.
Yeah.
And while they're working on it, and you don't get a chance to see a museum in the making.
No, without a doubt. Shopping and fashion.
Hats in the Belfry. I bought my first hat there in the 80s, and it's a mainstay. I love that it's in business. I love how enthusiastic they are about hats. I love the fact that our town supports a really cool hat store.
I was just picturing a hat store in the 80s. All the hats look like Molly Ringwald and Pretty in Pink.
A little bit. But yeah, mine was blue. It was pretty much that.
Or Blossom.
We've got
Blossom would have been in the 90s. But yeah.
We have the croquet match. We have to have a hat store.
It's true. And I love that they change it out by season. And I love that you go in there, and depending on if it's Easter bonnets or if it's derby hats or if it's winter hats or trilbies, or I just think it's a great spot. It always makes me happy.
Guys can't pull off hats anymore.
Oh yeah, they can.
I don't know. Like my old man, not my dad, but my grandfathers, they always wore the hat with the little feather. Not like the German thing, like with the big, but they had the little. Yeah. And like in movies in the old time, remember? They're just all right, Muggsy in the car. Hold on, I gotta get my hat.
Jack Friday's hat.
You gotta get my hat,
I think hats, and I'd asked them, I asked one of the shop people, hats in business, on business, and she said, hats go in and out, but there are always hat people. And I love being in a world where there are always hat people. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Also, hobo bags. I'm carrying one right now. I love their bags.
She lives in my neighborhood. Tony Ray.
She's so good. Her designs are great.
Are they? I know they're local. I mean, is that just a one-off store?
You can see them in Nordstrom. Yeah. You can see them in high-end places. But this is their only store. Yeah,
right. And they're
yeah. She designs in the studio upstairs, and I carry this bag everywhere. And I've had people. I've run into it. I was in Maui at the Shops at Wailea, and they had my bag that I had bought here. I'm like, oh, that's Hobo. I got it from the source.
I know where that is.
Exactly.
I recognize it. That's great.
They say, I was looking on the website and you were talking about your favorite things, and one of which is driving the back roads in your Salisbury, searching out the old Mason-Dixon marker.
That was so much fun. That was probably my favorite thing that I did. I was with my sister-in-law, and we were looking on, I'm a huge history buff, obviously, probably if you've read the book. And there weren't any clear markers as to where it was, looking up different sources online. And so we're driving around thinking, maybe it's here and it's supposed to be in this town. And then finally we found it, and it was like finding Mecca. And we stood and looked at it, took pictures, and hopped from north to south, and then went on our merry way.
What's funny is we used to have a sign until Governor Hogan that said that like we came down Route 70 and it said Mason-Dixon line, and they took that quietly down. And I always wondered if it was that stigma that they want to kind of raise, or maybe I'm reading into it.
I know. And a lot of them have been stolen.
They have one up on 83.
Yeah, not on 70. They took that down about 5-6 years ago.
There's a lot of them more north, but this one had to be on the Eastern Shore, and I think it's the only one that it's the only one we could find.
Well, my boss grew up in Hyattsville, and he took me to his homestead, like where they lived, right on the DC line, Mm-hmm. And his mother still lived there. And he goes, oh, look at this. We walked over to like this little copse of bushes, just like this old log and stuff. And he kicked away the leaves and stuff. And there's this little stone marker.
Which is amazing.
And then apparently there's only 8 of them that designate the DC line.
Yeah.
There's only like 8. And they're looking for the others. I'm like, is this one of the ones they found? And he just shrugged. He goes, I don't know. I'm like, I think you have one they don't know about.
Yeah. Guard it.
Yeah. But it's still there.
Another really cool thing is the Harriet Tubman Byway. Harriet Tubman.
Oh, that's awesome.
The Park Service did a huge museum that opened up last year, and it's beautiful. But the Byway, it's mapped. I didn't do all 125 miles of it, but it takes you past sites. And I found it, again, so evocative, because you go by an old field that you knew at one point was a plantation and people were escaping through. And I like that they didn't develop. I mean, the Interpretive Center is great because you get the history and the stories, but to be able to just drive by and still see all of that open space.
There's a movie coming out called Harriet.
Yep.
Cool.
In the next month that looks to be very, very good.
I hope they filmed it here.
They did.
And then in the winter, you'll see tundra swans, which are just amazing too when they come through Bywater.
Yeah, that whole thing, it always struck me.
Blackwater, sorry.
I try and read Chesapeake, the book, like every 3 years or so. And actually, like a kid, so I don't have a lot of time to read anymore. So I got the Libby app, which is awesome. It's through the library, and you can borrow library books on the Libby app, audiobooks.
Oh, good to know. So, although you should buy books too when you can.
No, I mean your book, yeah, obviously. But this was. So I listened to it 70 hours, and the downside is that the downside of the Libby app is that when you order something, it does take a long time, like months before you get it. But there's always this one thing that I always get. They follow 4 families from the 1500s to the 1980s, and at one point, the Turlocks, he starts to sell real estate on the Eastern Shore, and they were marsh people. They lived in the marsh. They were like really sneaky, people, skulky people. But he started to sell real estate. And at one point, he takes a plane. This is in the 50s, and it's like a Piper Cup. And he has a friend who takes him up, and he looks down and he starts crying, and he says, "We live in paradise."
Aww.
And I always think about that when I drive the Eastern Shore. Just how amazing this is. And everyone thinks their state is unique. And of course, every state is unique. I lived in New Mexico, and it was beautiful, and the desert was amazing. But when you go to the Eastern Shore, and you see like the Sassafras and the Avon and, the Bohemia River, all these rivers, and just what gems they are. And they are largely unspoiled.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really are.
Absolutely.
I mean, come in 50 years, we'll take a look. But right now, people are creeping over the bridge. They've crept over. They're in Queenstown. They're starting to spread out. And all of a sudden, they're like, we hate the traffic. I'm like, well, you're part of the reason there's traffic.
Exactly.
But we still, there's so much unspoiled stuff. Yeah. And there's so many gems that you have in the book that you can really dig. I would challenge anyone to go onto the Avalon website in Easton and look at the music lineup they have. go there, like get a hotel room, find an inn or a B&B.
That's what we did. We stayed at the Tidewater and ambled over to the rock show. It was great.
They get great acts, and it's a great venue.
Yeah.
It always astounds me that you have a venue literally in the middle of nowhere.
I think bands love to play it because it's a break. It's, on the road, the long road from if you're playing in Philly and then you're playing in DC, and it's unique. It's
most of the bands that I've talked to that come through the ramp said love a small room because of the intimacy that they can get with the audience. I mean, there's something to be said about playing for a stadium too, but
and I think people at Annapolis know their music. I mean, there's live music here every night of the week, which is great, and it's not something that happens, especially in other towns that are this small.
One of the things that you mentioned in here are some of the summer festival or the summer concerts. Okay, the Maritime Museum. I know you've got the Tides and Tunes and whatnot, and I don't understand why the city has not gotten their act together from Labor Day to Memorial Day. Memorial Day to Labor Day. I was
thinking those 9 months. Yeah.
Either way.
With all the people that sponsor weekly concert series between the Annapolis Town Center and the Maritime Museum and everything else, you could see free music every single night of the week for 3 solid months.
Yeah.
If they would just work to market themselves together and swap off days, but they've got these squatting right now. I'm Thursday.
Yeah,
I'm Thursday.
Absolutely.
And it would, it may not be the music that you want. I mean, okay, they're doing country twang. I don't care for that, but
it's live music and it's musicians
and it's free. And I think that would be just such a huge selling point for the area. 100 Things to Do in Annapolis Before You Die. Are you going to do another one? You have another book in you?
Who knows?
Do South County.
Sure.
What is South County? Is South County south of Annapolis or south of the South River?
That's going to keep me up at night.
I consider it south of the South River.
I have not actually given it much thought.
Well, don't want to keep you up there.
But you had a little bit of stuff on the south of the South River.
I did, yeah.
Well, that's
420 or 214 might be the line.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the other argument I've heard. Yeah, south.
I think there could be a whole book just about the Bay and the places that just touch on the Bay. Who knows? I just want to keep delving into this area. I love it.
I'll tell you, if anybody wants to get 100 Things to Do in Annapolis, you can obviously get it at Amazon. Put a couple pennies in Jeff Bezos' pocket like he needs more.
Barnes & Noble.
Old Fox Books, which is one of my favorite spots in Annapolis.
On Maryland Avenue.
On Maryland Avenue.
And you are having an event coming up soon at Galway Bay. Correct?
I am, yeah.
When's that?
That is it's Tuesday. I believe it's the 22nd because it's a Tuesday. So they do trivia every Tuesday. And it's real trivia. They're really good at it.
They chased me out of there. It was hardcore.
So they're going to do a segment of the night devoted to trivia from the book. And I'm not involved in it. He's figuring out the questions. I probably won't have the answers. And the way that it works there is that the teams donate, I think it's $10 to buy in.
And then the winner gets
and then that goes to it. Well, they're letting me choose the charity. So I'm donating it to Annapolis Green, which is a small nonprofit based on State Circle. And
we don't like LVS, so let's not talk about it. I'm just joking.
And Lynn. So I hope that people come out. It'll be a great cause. And I will have books in the back, but they told me you can't sell books until after that segment's done because we don't want people, leafing through for answers, which is cool by me.
Old Fox Books, you mentioned that. They're great.
Yeah,
Their backyard.
If you've never been there, that is
the mustache.
a gem.
Oh, it's magic.
What's it, your father's mustache?
Brown mustache coffee?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like out of Hogwarts, that whole place.
It's a little piece of magic for sure.
You go down to the basement. So if you've never been there, they have the bookshop upstairs. There's multiple levels and they have this garden in the back and they have the coffee place and it's very, very tight. And you go down this kind of nondescript, or not descript, you go down this tiny
tiny winding staircase.
Right. Yeah.
And you're downstairs and it's these stone walls and it's out of Cask of Amontillado or something, there's someone's walled in there somewhere.
Yeah.
But it's awesome.
It's great.
It smells like books.
And they have multiple book clubs that are open to the public. I joined one when I first moved back as a way to meet people, and I'm still going. We're reading Shirley Jackson this month.
And for those that are looking
she's great.
Yeah,
that's great.
it's really good.
The lottery is fantastic.
I haven't read that. We're reading We've Always Lived in the Castle, and it's great. And you can just go on their website and see. I think they have 4 book clubs at this point going on.
And for those that don't know where it is, you've got the main stores on Maryland Avenue.
He's motioning with his hands.
On the right is
closer to the Academy. Yeah, next to Hammond Harwood.
And it's a great little find that you've got there. It almost looks like it's in a residential section of the of the city, but it's great. I mean, Maryland Avenue is, and you said that in your book.
It's my favorite street.
A little street. I mean, it's so eclectic and funky. I mean, you've got Annabeth's, which has
everything.
Yeah,
She's
I mean, if you need an aspirin or a 6-pack of weird beer.
Yeah, or they have really good Rice Krispie treats there.
She's open all the time. You go down there at like 10:30 and she's open. It's great.
And it's neighborhoody. It's good.
No, it's fantastic. And she's got a really good wine selection, too.
Mm-hmm.
They have a little laundromat there. I love the laundromat. I want that candy machine that's there. I was actually going to make an offer.
I was at Galway Bay one night and they were doing a play in the laundromat, which is awesome. I love that there's a creative community here that can put on plays in the laundromat. And it was packed.
You knew they were St. John's.
I don't think it was. I think it was a local playwright.
That's such a Johnny thing to do.
I don't think it was.
Let's have a play in a laundromat. We'll call it Tide.
Which is also a play on the bay. That works on many levels. I like it.
It's in double entendre.
Yes,
That's it. Tuesday the 22nd, Galway Bay.
Yeah.
You can meet Susan Moynihan. You can get 100 Things to Do in Annapolis. Spin the Eastern Shore before you die. There are and honestly,
and they have the largest whiskey selection in Maryland of Irish whiskeys.
Yes, they do. And actually, they just put a new thing on their website where you can actually tour the bar and go in and you actually zoom in onto the bottles. And if you click on the bottle, it'll tell you the little story about like where it was.
Oh, that's cool.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Some pretty cool tech. But for a book that I sort of rolled my eyes at, you nailed it.
That means the world. I was.
And he rolls his eyes a lot.
Wanted it,
except for the whole Davis thing. But okay, we'll let you
agree to disagree. Exactly.
We'll let you say. I love Davis's, but I'm not willing to go into the dive bar on it just yet. And I do agree with you. I think that you probably could have easily done 100 in Annapolis only, and could have probably expanded that to 200.
And maybe version 2 will be Annapolis and then Eastern Shore.
Yeah, she's smart. She sandbagged. Yeah. Why do it all in one wad, and she can have 200 things. You gotta leave room for sequels.
Yeah.
Well, where can we find you, and what's your website or?
There's a Facebook page, 100 Things to Do Annapolis.
Okay.
So that's there. I have a website, SusanMoynihan.com, that has a link where you can buy books, assuming I got my square set up correctly. So either way.
Is that a big assumption?
It worked at the Arts Festival, but I haven't tried it online yet, so we'll see.
Fantastic. And you have been around. You were for Sunday Arts for one weekend. You have, I know you had another book signing at Old Fox at one point. And,
I'll be doing Chestertown, the book plate at some point. I did Barnes & Noble, Ellicott City. I'll be doing Midnight Madness, hopefully in the Annapolis Green office, which would be fun.
Okay, yeah.
So
Midnight Madnesses are great.
Yeah, they are.
Because it's got alcohol.
It does, yeah.
And cookies.
And reasons to buy things.
Absolutely. Susan Moynihan, great job on 100 Things to Do in Annapolis and Eastern Shore before you die. It was a pleasure talking with you. And it was funny, we sat there and we met a year ago at the boat show. And it dawned on me at this year's boat show, I said, oh, yeah, I think I met her.
That's that girl. Was doing that book. It actually came out. Shocking. Well, this is a treat. Thank you so much. I think your website is a huge asset to the community, and it's a go-to for me. So
thanks.
The fact that you like the book means a lot.
Oh, and one more thing I want to say about the book, which I think is really cool. If you go to the back of the book, it's got the boring index, but it also has it's got a section for suggested itineraries. So if you're looking to, get into the foodie thing or whatever it is like that, and also by season. So if you want to come here and see Christmas season, okay, you're going to hit the Parade of Lights, which I think they're probably going to sue me or something because it's not called that. It's called the Light Parade.
Yes, Lights Parade. Yeah.
Or you're going to see, the pomp and circumstance that surrounds the Army Navy game, or
and the after hours, Annapolis by candlelight when you get to go sneak into people's houses. That's always fun.
Yeah, so that's a great way to break down 100 things is to do it by the season. Okay, hey, I'm here in the spring. What is there?
Because there is stuff happening all year long. It's not just a summer tourist spot at all.
Without a doubt. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
This was fun.
This has been the Maryland Crabs Podcast with Tim Hamilton and John Fernay. Sure to follow them at all the regular places, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and online at themarylandcrabs.com. Take a moment to rate us on iTunes. Now, get the hell out of my kitchen. Seriously, go!
You're still here? It's over. Go home.